being challenged in a different way. If they do take a course, ideally they should be able to contribute something to the class or to take something out of the class or prepare a piece of work for that course that is different than what other people in the class are doing. If they are assistants to professors, again, they should be expected to do something with that professor and for that professor that goes beyond what an undergraduate student would do. And I think the best way to describe this is that the doctoral student's identity should be kind of front and center in the work that student does, even for a professor. So it may be that it's assistant work, but it should incorporate in some important way the interests, the preoccupations, the baggage, if you like, that the particular doctoral student brings. And finally, the kind of opposite extreme, also a bad model, is the substitute professor. The person who, because he or she is kind of available and hanging out at the library or in a kind of doctoral cubicle somewhere, is kind of the backup if the professor can't be there to teach or to mark or to do whatever it is. And so the professor, kind of knowing that a doctoral student is always on the lookout for experience, kind of shifts over and kind of hands that responsibility to a student fully. Now, without preparation and without adequate supervision of the doctoral student, who may indeed want and appreciate the experience in teaching, and I'll talk about that in a moment, but who is still a student, right, and should be learning about teaching even as he or she has that, embarks on that kind of responsibility. And this is also often something not so much on the part of professors, but actually on the part of the institution. So if you're at an institution that doesn't really know what to do with you, unless you're kind of invisible or looking like an undergraduate or just being kind of one of the faculty, which you know you aren't, so it's very awkward, right? Then you need to kind of look for some other ways to build community and to make connections among your doctoral student counterparts. So that's one piece. The next, this other thing is kind of a little visual. See, I can't do it on the computer. All I can do is on the. If I could do it, it should be 3D. You should be able to take 3D glasses and get the feeling for it. I was thinking about how being a doctoral candidate actually often feels like you're on a carousel, right? And you may know the carousel song. I'm not going to sing it for you because I see it being filmed. That would be bad. But right, this idea that the seasons, they go round and round and you're captive on a carousel of time. I think that this often is exactly what doctoral students feel. It's like, oh my God, it's June again, right? How did that happen? Now, we all may feel that, but there's a particular resonance to it for doctoral students that you just kind of feel like you're going around and around and you're not sure that you're progressing, and there's this kind of feeling you can't get off and you just kind of go up and down going around. And so that's not a great feeling. The other one, though, and I think is often the one that feels more strategic, is the kind of the straight timeline, the totally linear chart that you're going to start here, and at this point you're going to be here, and then you're going to do this. You're going to get chapter 1 done and revise chapter 1, and then chapter 2 and revise chapter 2, chapter 3, then it'll be all done. You'll hand it in, and you know exactly where you'll be when, and it will all be finished. And there's something about that. First of all, I'm not sure if it's possible. It may be possible, at least in the lives of some people. But I'm not sure that you see the view, right? There's something much more romantic about the carousel and going around and actually listening to the music and the feeling, and you're kind of with other people and there's something kind of nice about it, whereas this timeline feels very rigid and very lonely. But I think the better picture is my little wordy picture here, that you do go round and round, but that each circle has to be different than the circle before, right? You should actually be feeling like you're adding a layer that you can refer back as you keep going. You should feel like you're going in some direction, but that the direction perhaps is out from the middle, right, in different ways. Through these layers that keep getting added year after year, It's a long process, right? But not too long. And that, I think, is a nicer way to think about it, such that you don't get caught in a trap that I think many doctoral students get caught in, which is that every time you take on something additional, in quotes, and sometimes this can actually be something like getting married, or having to look after an ill parent, or having a baby, right? But these things get turned in your mind into this additional thing that is now taking away time from your principal priority, which is your research project. And you really have to, that's the timeline person, right? And you have to be able to talk yourself out of that mode, because those are things that are part of life. And you don't want to miss life while you are a doctoral student, right? So that it may be that there are, and it often is the case, because that's the time in life that people are doing doctorates, that there are other significant things going on in your life. And if every time one of those significant things comes along, and it can be the kind of the big life things that I just mentioned, or it could be a conference or an opportunity to do a paper, or an opportunity to write an op-ed in a newspaper, right? But none of those things should feel like they're taking away from what you should be doing. Because if you keep telling yourself that that's what's happening, you will feel like you're going backwards rather than forwards. Now, that doesn't mean to take on so much stuff that you lose sight of your research project. It is primary, it is central, there is limited time for it, but it does mean that you should be looking for some way to integrate and to balance. I think integrate is a better word, because balance sounds like it's kind of something taking you away, and if you put in enough time in your research, you can balance it out. I think it's more integration, asking yourself, what am I learning from the months that I just spent with a newborn, for example, that can teach me something about how I can be better organized and focused in this next stage of my research work. Okay, so I'll now just kind of list these abilities or skills that, as I say, a couple of the doctoral students here noticed were things that professors are expected to have, and things that we should be asking ourselves as doctoral students whether we are taking opportunities to work on each of these in some way. First, obviously, ability to conduct research. The second, to write well, to send things out, to know when something is sendable, publishable, get it out, take the critique, revise, and actually move to publication. The ability to speak in public, to communicate well. The ability to teach, to take an idea and actually get others excited in that idea, for them to be able to follow where you're going and to develop their own interests in it. Skills in a particular set of expert domains or areas, and that's part of what doctoral students obviously develop as they go further and further into a particular area. And others that perhaps are not as obvious, skills in evaluation, so giving constructive feedback, constructive criticism on the work of others, the skill in planning a course and planning a presentation or workshop can show that you have that kind of experience, that you're developing that ability to be able to plan a whole 14 or 15 week course. Skills in administration. So the ability to actually organize something like this conference, or a weekly coffee hour, or a graduate student retreat. Show, again, you don't want to do it every single year in the time that you're a student, but to show that you've done that shows that you can actually work in a team and work in a way to kind of get from A to Z. And finally, mentoring skills. And this is an interesting one. Doctoral students often go through thinking, I'm the one who should be mentored, right? I need help. At some point, actually, you need to realize that you don't so much anymore, that you shift